Hello, everybody. Ham Solo here, K0FYR. It is February, I think, around the 12th of 2022. And this kind of marks almost a year since I started to get into amateur radio. I hadn't really done anything before with amateur radio. I had been a firefighter for over 25 years, had used radios quite a bit, used radios in the Army as well. But as far as from an amateur ham radio standpoint, had never really done it until about a year ago. And so got piqued my interest. I kind of was looking on the internet, found there was a local club that was near the house where I moved here in Colorado, and so decided to go ahead and start getting involved. And I think since then, both my knowledge base and my videos have shown a lot of progression from the early days. And I know maybe not a lot of you have watched any of my earlier videos, but I had building of the ham shack from basically nothing to where it is now. Did a lot of videos on some of my basic radio setups and so forth. And then a lot of them ended up being parks on the air or summits on the air activations. And it seems that I'm not going to say I got stuck in a rut, but it seems like that's what a lot of them have been lately. And listening to some of them, I realized, when I have somebody looking over my shoulder, that they don't sometimes know what I'm talking about at all. And so what I wanted to do was kind of really go back to the basics. Start from the beginning, kind of go over the things that I learned along the way, do some introductory videos on some of the radios that I use, why I use them, how I decided to go with a different radio. And I think that's where I want to go with this new series of videos that I'll put out. Will I still be doing park or soda videos? Sure. I mean, whenever I get the chance to go to a park or go outside or go do a summits on the air, I'm going to record it and I'm going to post it. But I do want to do a new little series of videos where it's basically starting from scratch. Maybe we can learn the terminology together. We can go over why some items are chose over others. And just kind of go into deep dives sometimes on some of the equipment that I may or may not have discussed in depth before. And so I believe that's what the plan is now. Right now I'm sitting in it's kind of like a city park inside of the town I live, which is a very small town nowadays. And I got Pikes Peak there in the background, so I'm not really far from the house, but just kind of wanted to get outside. It's a little bit breezier than I thought it was going to be, but that's kind of what I'm here to do. And so what I've lined out on the table right now is the HTs, the handy talkies or the handheld walkie-talkies that I currently use, and why I go with those. And so that's where I'm going to kind of start off. Also, I did start a new cloud fund project that is called Buy Me a Coffee /K0FYR. And there you can do donations. It helps support my radio hobby as far as buying equipment so I can do product reviews here on the channel. Then after so many dollars donated, then what I'll do is basically give away the equipment that I'm purchasing to do the product reviews. And so they'll probably eventually evolve into some live stream content where I do a live stream giveaway for the subscribers. But that's the idea. And so I'll have the link will be on the video. Will be posted. It'll be in the description down below. It'll also be on the splash page, where the link is for the Buy Me a Coffee crowdfund, right? Or is it crowdfunding? Crowdfunding, I think. Anyway, So let's kind of get started with these radios, and let's talk a little bit about what they are and why I have them. All right, went and turned the camera just a little bit so we could see a little bit better. Basically, my very first radio, right after I got my technician license last March, which is going to be 11 months ago. So when I got my my technician license, the very first radio I got was the Baofeng, and this is the UV82 HP high power. It'll do 8 watts transmit on the high power, but most of the time I think I keep it somewhere pretty much around between 5 and 8 watts. I don't normally go below that. Use this quite a bit in the beginning. Again, Baofeng, usually the UV5R is pretty typical for a lot of people to get into. I think it's $29, $30, something like that. This one was probably about $75, and I think the main reason is that it's got the potential to do the 8 watts transmit, in addition to the memory storage, and the amount of channels that you can store on it is much higher. I think I currently only have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 channels in it. But this is a VHF UHF 2 meter and 70 centimeter radio. It'll do most of your typical 144 to 148 megahertz, and the 440-ish to 448 megahertz is about the typical range that I transmit on it. Again, all of that is going to be ham radio, and so I have a bank of repeaters in there. I have several different channels that are just simplex. Again, when I was doing summits on the air, I was doing the national calling frequency 146.520 megahertz, and what they call the adventure channel 146.580 megahertz. And that's how I was doing my initial summit activations, was with this radio. And so actually right behind me, the first green portion of that mountain is Raspberry Mountain. That's the very first summit I ever activated, and I used this radio as part of that activation. And so fairly easy to use. The software to program it is called Chirp. It's free online. And that's normally how I program any of my Baofengs, is going to be with the Chirp software. And for the most part, I keep this on. It's a daily carry. I have my Mountain Amateur Radio Club channel is almost always on my sub-channel A. And sub-channel B, I kind of go back and forth between things I put on it. But for the most part, I've got a repeater that's that direction on some mountains kind of off in the distance. And that's pretty much the second channel that I normally keep on all the time. Talk on it occasionally, sure. Again, my Mountain Amateur Radio Club repeater is only about 4 miles from where I'm sitting. And the other one may be 15, 20 miles. And so I usually keep this on. If I drive down into Colorado Springs, I might switch it to those versions of the repeaters down there. But for the most part, that's pretty much what I have in that radio, and that's why I have that radio. I think the second radio, as far as the handheld HTs that I purchased, was the Anytone. The Anytone 878 UV2 Plus is a analog and digital DMR radio. I have usually used this for my further on SOTA activations. Let's say SOTA activations from 2 or 3 or 4 up, and by now I've done, I don't even know how many. And so I use this quite a bit. It is VHF and UHF the same. It is capable of receiving FM radio all the way up through 174 megahertz, as well as in the UHF frequency bands. You can go all the way up, including listening to GMRS with it. It is the capability. I do keep sometimes my same VHF repeater channels for my amateur radio club group in there. but for the most part, what I use this one for is DMR. And so digital mobile radio is a commercial type radio that was used in the old days for a lot of the commercial businesses would use the radio to have a more secure communication, I guess you want to call it. It's not encrypted, it's not scrambled. It just happens to be digital, which was harder for people to monitor at the time. Once that went kind of more free and open, then the ham radio people grabbed a hold of it, and they started really using DMR for amateur radio. Depends on how you want to use it, but basically there are DMR repeaters. There's also little open source hotspots that you can use at your house. I have a hotspot at my house, and I can talk to China with this radio, but it's going through the internet. Whereas a lot of people would like to use these just on DMR repeaters, which are going to be repeater towers that are off on mountaintops or wherever they're at, and they broadcast to other repeater towers, usually microwave. That's the system that we have set up in Colorado right now, is DMR microwave network, and it goes all the way up into Wyoming and as far as south as into New Mexico and Arizona, and I've used it there before. Some of the previous videos you might have seen me activating in New Mexico or in Arizona, I was on the DMR network trying to find people to get them to switch over to Simplex. And so basically that's what this radio is for. The channels I currently have set up on it, in my A slot, I have my local fire channel that I'm monitoring. Let's see if I can see that. So it says Divide Fire North. That is an analog channel, VHF, and I'm monitoring that for calls. And then the lower, the sub B channel is Rocky Mountain, and it's called Devil's Head South, and that is a DMR microwave repeater that's located on Devil's Head, which is a mountain this way, probably about 20-ish miles away. And so I do have a DMR channel in there and an analog channel, both of them scanning at the same time, running and listening at the same time. But that's kind of what I use this radio for. And so let's set that one off here to the side. And again, you know, it's just sitting here running. Next radio I got for you is my KG UV9G Pro. This is GMRS. This is a GMRS Part 95 accepted radio, and it is for the General Mobile Radio Service channels. Again, I have mine set up from Better Safe Radio. He's the one that sells this. And it is programmed with a bunch of shit hits the fan channels, and it'll monitor most of your fire, EMS, public safety, as well as some other governmental agencies, as long as they're doing VHF, UHF. It doesn't monitor digital for the most part. It does not monitor any of the trunked systems. It won't do P25 or anything like that, which is some of the basically scrambled channels that we use now in the fire service and law enforcement. But it will monitor a lot of the older systems that are still VHF, UHF, and it will transmit specifically on GMRS. And so I do have all of the front range GMRS channels in here from up near Denver. That comes south to around Castle Rock, maybe Monument, and then it picks up again near Pueblo. There are no GMRS repeaters that are in my local area. Hopefully that'll change, and I may be able to establish one on my own property. But for right now, to use GMRS like this, usually you have to drive down into Colorado Springs and use the new repeaters that they've set up there. Or if I go up to do work up in Denver, I usually get on the front range GMRS group there near once I start hitting Castle Rock and above. And so that's what this radio is. 5/8 stubby antenna. Again, this is tuned for GMRS frequencies. So you're in the 462 megahertz range, 467 megahertz. That's what this radio is for right here. Okay. The last little handheld I have here actually just happened to be in my bag, so I thought I would take it out. This is my fire department radio. So this would be a Part 90 radio. These are tuned for the most part to the 150-ish megahertz range. This one is set up on 155 megahertz. And this is, it has all of the VHF channels in it for the fire departments in the surrounding area. And so, again, transmit is probably at the most 5 watts. And it's hitting the VHF system here for several of the departments that are in this local area. We are actually technically switching to 800 megahertz starting Monday, February the 14th, Valentine's Day. The entire county and most of the state at this point has switched to 800 megahertz. It's a little slower going with the volunteer departments simply because they don't have the budget to buy a lot of 800 megahertz radios to begin with. But that is currently what we're using is a VHF 155 megahertz range. That's for the local fire departments, and I can count a whole bunch of them in this area. Cripple Creek and Victor, Divide, Florissant, Lake George, even Northeast Teller County. We still have a lot of radios that are on that system, and that radio will pick all those up. Teller County Search and Rescue, even the sheriff's office can get on those VHF channels and still broadcast. But a lot of the paid departments in the area, Northeast Teller County and Woodland Park, Cripple Creek and Victor, have already switched to the 800 megahertz, and they just do patches back and forth between the VHF. And now we should be doing the same in my local department, which is Divide Fire. And so hopefully in the short term we can get more radios in. I know they applied for a grant to get everybody outfitted with the radio, but that'll take a while for the grant to go through. But right now we're doing what they call simulcasting, where they're broadcasting both on the 800 dispatch channel and on the VHF 155 megahertz-ish channel. And so until then, I got to carry that radio too. And so this is kind of the slew of what I call the daily carry. And a lot of times, you know, with my backpack, I have radios in the side pockets. I have radios in the center when I'm not using them specifically. Don't turn on the fire radio or the GMRS radio unless I get a call. And again, I'm monitoring the fire channel on my Anytone. And so once we get the call, I'll go ahead and throw on the VHF radio, and then I use that exclusively. So this is kind of how I wanted to start out, kind of how I wanted to go into the new Back to the Basics series. And so I will probably go through each one of these radios other than the fire radio, and we'll do a deep dive on each one. And we'll talk about how does this one work, how to use the software, how do you program it, what do the different menus do, how do you get the thing set up initially when you first get it, how will you know where to even find the channels that you want to talk on that are in your area. That's what I want to focus on. So I do appreciate you watching. I hope this is something that y'all are interested in. Obviously, if not, let me know. Put down in the comments, hey, we don't care about that early junk. Or say, yeah, you know what, it's great. I'm watching this specifically because I'm interested in ham radio and I want to know how things work. And that's kind of like the intent of how I want to do these videos. So, appreciate your time. This is Ham Solo, K0FYR 73.